Welcome to the Deep Dive Spirituality Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Brian Russell, and today it's my privilege to welcome back Marcum Davis for part 3. This time, Marcum and I do a deep dive essentially into two areas. First, I have Marcum talk about his ministry work in Ukraine, where he has a 501(c) organization called Abundance International that literally supports hundreds of orphans across Ukraine. You get to hear that origin story, how the wars affected it, and you'll be inspired by how Marcum connects us back to his deep faith. And then we go into talking about spiritual practices, and one of the things I appreciate about Marcum the most is his love for a gratitude practice. And those who listen to the show know that I'm a big advocate of gratitude, and it should be it's a practice that can be implemented into our lives. And Marcum takes us into a really deep dive, and he gives some insights into gratitude that I haven't heard from anyone else. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Check out the links to Marcum's abundanceinternational.org and also marcumdavis.com. If I can be of service, reach out to me at brian@brianphd.com. I want to remind folks, if you're listening to this in the summer of 2024, that I'm offering a series of spiritual growth workshops. The next one will be August 21st, and it will be on how to read scripture for deep transformation. If you sign up, there's a link in the notes. It's brianrussellphd.com/growth workshops. Will receive videos from the previous 2 workshops as well as the invite to the next one. And please use the Amazon links in the notes if as a way to support the show. It doesn't increase your purchase price at all and allows a little bit of revenue sharing back to me, which helps me to keep the podcast hosted. Appreciate you listening, so please like, subscribe, share, and without further ado, listen to this fantastic, inspiring episode that I recorded with Marcum Davis. Hey, Marcum, welcome back for part 3.
Oh, Brian, I've been looking forward to this, my brother. It's just one of those conversations that gets deeper and more delicious every time we go forward. So the title of your podcast is absolutely appropriately named. We Go Deep Dive, and I'm sure we're going to go even deeper today. Great questions to go down. So thanks for having me back.
Well, you're welcome. And let's jump right back in. Again, encourage folks to listen to our first 2 interview episodes where Marcum, we really do deep dive on his new book, Legacy. And today we're going to bring in a couple other areas of his life. And, I want to start, we have mentioned this in the previous 2, but you started a nonprofit group that serves Ukrainian orphans called Abundance International. Why don't you just tell us a bit about that story and give us a sense of what Abundance International is, how the wars affected that, and maybe how people can jump in. So let's just hear the story or chip in. And so let's hear the story a little bit.
No, and stories would be a good way to tee it up. I had originally, because I now have family in Ukraine and I had business there, and so I'd lived there for probably 8 years leading up to the war, and truly loved it. It's a very family-centric culture, hardworking people, they don't complain, and very authentic, people. People have misperceptions of them as sort of some emerging, well, they're an emerging nation, but certainly not a sort of third world thing. They're very much on the European side. But since I was over there, the first instinct was, well, let's do something to give back. And so literally walked into an orphanage in 2012 and just said, hey, I have American friends come here all the time. We could raise some money. What do you guys need? And they looked at me like, well, who are you? And so it started with this, all right, well, if you're real, and, because these orphanages in Ukraine, most of them are not supported by big name organizations here in America. They don't get the big name. And so when they get a little partnership with an American company or a German company or somebody else just to help throw them something, it becomes a very strategic alliance. And so we get back to this orphanage in Mykolaiv, Ukraine, where I was living, that had about 60, and they were the little orphanage. So they were like from newborns to 4 years old, and then the older kids go to a different one to go through school years. So we were adopting, first of all, this orphanage, and it was a delight because the culture and the ethics there, they feel like, if you're going to be there, you're a guest and they entertain you like they're the host. And so the director of the orphanage would have tea prepared for us. We'd come and we would make deliveries of just piles of stuff. We'd load up, the vans with whatever they said they needed for food and medicines, and we did a lot of construction projects. You can go to the website at abundanceinternational.org and look through some of the things that we've done there over the years. And but fast forward to the war. So at the time of the war, we were supporting orphanages in two cities, Mykolaiv and Kherson, which you heard a lot about Kherson because the Russians took that city first in the southern region just above Crimea. And we immediately, the morning of the shock, we didn't honestly, nobody living in Ukraine actually thought it was going to happen. We've been living with the rumblings of war since 2014 and the Orange Revolution. Every day Russia's doing this, people are smiling. There's always just posturing in politics for like how many years was that, right? 8 years of just every day, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So very few of us actually expected the invasion. So at 5:28 a.m., when I wake up with the ground shaking and hearing these thundering noises, I look out the window and I could see the smoke coming up, and it was the airport. They took out the airport. We were like, oh wow, this is real. And I do want to make a comment. I make this point in the book, and you got to manage as an American living there. I had all of my friends in the U.S. saying, "Get out, get out." A lot of people ask me why would you stay? Because certainly, if I were captured, they would take my city. I would not be treated well, and the Russians are not known for obeying the codes of war. But I had really thought about it, saying, okay, I don't believe it's going to happen, but if it did, I got to stay. And I thought so because one, I couldn't stand the idea of having family and employees and different people there in the country. And I'm sitting back in the US on my lazy boy watching a big screen TV, knowing they're actually living through it. The second thing I thought of was, I want to be able to a year from now look back and say I'm really proud for how I handled myself. And honestly, I will say the development of the ideas in the book Legacy nurtured sort of thinking that way, because when you're in the moment you don't think that way, but I'd sort of developed that long-term perspective. Well, wait, I want to be able to look back and say I'm proud of how I handled myself, so it helped lift me out of the panic of the moment. And the other thing was I just had to believe from a faith perspective that if I was there, I was there for such a time as this. There's a reason I was supposed to be there. Now, we went immediately when all the bombs started going off and panic in the streets and people running the stores, because nobody knew nobody knew anything. We didn't know we'd get restocked. We didn't know if fuel would run out. So people were trying to hoard up what they could to hold on, but they were very good about it. And they were very orderly. Grocery store lines were 2 hours long, but they would stay to their lines, and people were being good to each other. One of the stories of the culture that you find is not talked about much. One time we were going to the local hospital to try to get some of these special pharmaceuticals the kids need. Because, when you have a third of the children are special needs, the medicines they need are not Tylenol. You know what I'm saying? And so we go to the hospital. Things are still chaotic. There are people running around. And there was a unit of Ukrainian military there. And they started asking, who are these guys? Because they could just hear my voice. I was obviously an American, even though I had translators with me. And so somebody told him, hey, he's a director who works with the orphanage and they're just trying to get some medicine. And without hesitation, all of a sudden I had this big old Ukrainian soldier in uniform, kind of like, come here. And I'm like, oh, I don't know which direction this is going. He goes to the back of their truck and they hand us 200 pounds of potatoes out of their own rations.
Oh, wow.
And they say, here, take care of the kids, which was translated for me. I still don't speak the language. And we saw such amazing stories of love and support and gratitude and sacrifice for each other that it made me just really admire the culture of the people there. Now, when the war went off, I was fortunate that I'd formed the 501c3 nonprofit years prior, because you couldn't take, the war goes off. It takes a year and a half to get a nonprofit approved, right? So it made it a much easier vehicle for us to take take donations, and I was the flavor of the day on all the media because I'm an American in Ukraine and the war is happening. So if you go to the website at abundanceinternational.org, you can see the media page where I was on CNN, BBC, Fox, 5 Fox shows, all these different shows. And that helped us raise money. And immediately we started getting calls from other orphanages. So at one point, just within a few months after the war started, we were responding to requests from 22 different orphanages around the country. And the number in Kherson became a problem. They were under Russian control, and the stores had been ransacked. We were trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so we had developed our own sort of underground stealth communication with the directors of the 5 orphanages in that area about how to help them out. And we couldn't get things to them, but we still could get funds to them. We could use, at the time, there's a system within Ukraine where you could use what's called a credit or your card. And so basically like credit card number. Somebody just gives me a card number and you can switch it like PayPal, right? PayPal also turned on the switch. They began working. Nothing else was. Western Union, none of that stuff. They shut it off. So we came up with a system where we could get some funds to them, but we had to create our own supply system because, like I said, the grocery store has been raided. We found some pharmacies where the owner would come in, unlock it, and give what he had in his reserves for us. We found farmers and fishermen that are now sort of, it's thrown up in the air how the whole system is going to work. So we say, well, hey, whatever you got extra, give it to us. So we ended up getting piles of fish, butchered meat. We had people bringing in, somebody just had some land and they had a pig, and so they said, here, take our pig, and so we developed our own underground supply network. We had one guy that got a permit from the Russians to be able to drive on the roads. They were very strict. So he would bring things in. We were kind of doing this little farmers James Bond kind of thing. It was really, truly amazing to see what they had to do for the 8 months while Russia still owned and occupied that part of the territory. One of the most difficult things that it shouldn't have been was we had a family in Crimea that wanted to they were going to risk themselves, come across the border into the Kherson region, bring us the pharmaceuticals we needed. And we had people in our own organization saying, we don't want to talk to Crimeans. They're traitors. They sided with Russia. And we're like, look, I don't care about your politics. We need this stuff. The kids need to stay alive. Bring it. Finally, we had and I'll end with this, but we had a really tragic situation where our main orphanage in Kherson, the kids were taken into Russia, and we do not know where they are. We had a secondary orphanage that only had 16 kids. They were taken, and we actually had an off-duty operative, CIA operative, who just off the record led his own rescue group, and they got those 16 kids back, and it became a news media story. That was in Kherson. But, on the website, there's a video where I show, and in the book, there's photos showing like before the war, and I got a picture of me sitting with these kids where at Christmas, they put on a little pageant for us. These are like kids 4 and under. And I'm looking at them, these are the kids that are gone. And we're finding out that they're giving them different names they can't be searched for. They're adopting them out to Russian families. The list of casualties of the war, just continue to go on beyond what we can be. I was just there a few months ago. I went to go to Ukraine, and it's a resilient people. Even in the city I was in, which was 45 minutes from the front lines, it's our nature to adapt. And so everybody's trying to live as normal a life as possible. One of the restaurants I loved going to had been hit by a bomb, but they'd completely repaired. They were back open like nothing was going on. And people try to have a festive, celebrating spirit amongst each other. And it is really admirable to see what the human spirit will do to find happiness in the world, to find life within whatever they're given, but also within this culture to understand how much they will sacrifice and give themselves for somebody else to have a better life. And I think us in the West could really learn, from the things I've seen.
Talk about how your faith, what role that played in getting the orphanage going, and yeah. So say anything you want to about how your faith connects with this
Sure.
mission. Yeah.
Well, there's a deep sense, I think, in the heart of every believer that's connected to the source of the Father and his heart of love for this creation and for his people. And I think that there's a natural, like I said, there was a natural outpouring of like, all right, I'm here. What can we do to give back? And then, of course, the second time we were able to go to the orphanage and they let us go in and play with a room of kids, you're done. Your heart's opened up. It's such a blessing, and they're so receptive to see, especially men, because the thing is run by almost all women, right? So a guy comes in, they're like, "What is this?" And it's adorable. And they fight to crawl on your lap, so and it was so easy, to do a project. We ended up building a 6-unit birthing center where the moms could actually stay in the room. And we did it in the orphanage. It was the director had this idea. It's like, if we can actually have them give birth here, because a lot of them are teen pregnancies, parents are in, drugs or incarceration, or a disabled child, the parents decide they don't want to raise. But for all those teen pregnancies, can we at least get them there? And they try to educate them to get them to not give up the child, and to give them parental training. Those things became such a joy to do, and nothing I'd ever done before. But it's like anything else. Once you start going, it goes. And it was clear that God's hand of favor was on it. Everything we did, and I just felt his glow and his smile on us. And I felt like it wasn't even my idea, honestly. I just felt like it was a prompting, and I just sort of was along for the ride. Even though, I founded Abundance International, and I was sort of the face for it. I never felt like it was my project. I felt like it was something God wanted to do, and I just got to go along for the ride. So I'm grateful to have been part of that, and to give back to it with like all the royalties from the book are going to go to the organization, and we hope to do a lot more.
And so if people want to donate that may be
Mhm.
listening, what's the best way to find out more about Abundance International and potentially
The website,
do it done?
the
Yeah, just
website's really good. Abundanceinternational.org. I know it's a long URL, but abundanceinternational.org. We're endorsed by members of the parliament, Ukrainian government, actor Ben Vereen. All those videos are there. You can see the photo log of what we've been doing for the last years. Just this, there's probably over 1,000 photos on the page. Just keep scrolling. You could see what's there. And the donate page, you can give any way you want with check, credit card, PayPal. We have a GoFundMe campaign, even crypto. So, and then there's the address to just send it a paper check if that's your choice. It's a registered 501(c)(3), so if that applies to your tax situation, then that's a blessing as well. But we have to have regular monthly contributors to keep the need doesn't go into every month. We got to come back and we have to give them, food, medicine, and then there's some special requests that come up from time to time. So any of those are grateful. I appreciate the opportunity.
and how many orphans are you able to support? I mean, maybe it
Mhm.
fluctuates, but roughly how big of
Mhm.
a organization is Abundance International?
I'm very grateful that we've never had any request from an orphanage that we've had to deny. We've been able to meet every single request, including a massive roof and mold recovery project. So it has fluctuated, and like I said, we've managed to give support in one form or another, some more than others, as are requested, to up to 22 orphanages. And currently, we'll probably have about 8 that we provide regular sustenance for.
Okay, so that's hundreds of kids, I would guess, right?
Hundreds,
Yeah, yeah.
hundreds of
Wow,
kids.
that's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing about that. And again, check out abundanceinternational.org. Again, there'll be a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to find out a little bit more. And also, again, check out Marcum's book, Legacy. As you just heard, all the royalties are going to support Abundance International as well. Let's shift and talk a little bit about. I want to get into your coaching, but one of the things that I've really appreciated about you're one of the co-leaders for the men's small group that I
Hmm.
attend, and you oftentimes come back to gratitude as kind of a grounding practice. Why is that
Mm.
so important for you? And like, what would be like maybe a lesson, a 5 minute lesson on gratitude, or yeah, just talk a little bit about what role gratitude plays in your life.
I appreciate that. And this is earth shattering. So if somebody was tempted to hit pause, hit forward fast, or I don't know to hear about gratitude, I am going to rock your world from a theological standpoint and a practical and a psychological standpoint, because I was not into gratitude just even a few years ago, didn't get it. Growing up as a Christian, I thought it was about before a meal, you say a prayer, and that's gratitude. And I thought it was more of a duty thing you had to do of service. And so first of all, let me just dive right into what I think is the juiciest is the theological side of it. And then I'm going to go into the psychological side of it, which is the answer what so many look for is like when I'm stressed and I'm whacked out, where do people go to relieve stress? Typically they go to different forms of activities or distractions. Nobody thinks about gratitude, and I'm going to explain why it's the secret. And it's so you can in an instant radically change your state and be empowered. So God has provided all of this in there. So first of all, let me do the theological thing. And I told you at the beginning I had two of these um, sort of Terrence Howard moments, these earth shattering. Is that really doctrine kind of things? But this is why you're the doctor, you're the PhD, and I want to ask you about your opinion on this. And first of all, I will say, as a pretext to anything theologically, Paul said we just see through a veil thinly. We really truly, as much as we in our carnal human thinking bodies try to think we understand God or the spirit realm, it's pride and arrogance. God even said, "My ways are higher than yours, my thoughts are higher than yours." Right? We only get a glimpse. But sometimes what I think is more true is the truth has been put within us. The Spirit lives within us. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And there are things we hear that all of a sudden glow and resonate. So what I'd ask people to do is I tell this theology instead of your brain intellectually trying to say, well, that's not the way I learned it. Just listen to the Spirit. See if there's some piece here for you. Because I got excited when I heard this. So let's go back. The Garden of Eden story. And everyone in theology, and I went to Christian Heritage College, and it's called San Diego Christian College now, and I went to it's the big school for apologetics, in science, Christian Science. The story of Adam and Eve, when it comes down to temptation and the fall of man and sin, has always come between that dialogue with the serpent and the biting of the apple. And I'm gonna disagree that that was where the fall was. I think it happened earlier in that process, and let me explain. So I'll paraphrase because we just get small snippets of words, and we have probably a little more conversation wouldn't happen that was summarized in these snippets of words. But basically, Satan enters the serpent and basically poses to Eve the same thing he did as Lucifer. He says, is God really holding out on me? Can I really have something he has that I should have for myself, right? And so he comes to her, and the first question he asks is like, hey, Adam and Eve, because Adam was standing right there the whole time with her. He goes, has God given you everything you need? And she goes, yeah, this is paradise. I mean, look at this. I got food. I got everything I could want. It's everywhere. And then he goes, oh, has he really?
Mhm.
Right? What about that tree over there? Well, God told us not to. Oh, see, he's holding out on you. There's something good he's not giving you. He's not giving you everything you could have. It's and he's cheating on you. He's cheating you out of what you could have. He hasn't given you everything you could have. And I believe in the moment that they entertained the idea that, maybe God hasn't given me everything I need. It's just same thing as when Paul says he talks about no, Jesus was saying to the one who's even said lust in his mind, he's committed the sin. You go, well, how can you say just in his mind, right? So I think of the same thing in the Garden of Eden at the moment when she says, maybe God hasn't given me everything. Maybe there's something he's holding out on me. It's the antithesis, I think, of the heart of God, where he would want us to say, in any circumstance we're in, where we think it's good, we think it's bad, or whatever, to say, you know what? I trust you. I believe you have given me everything I need. And I will look to you for my daily bread, my manna, and I will trust you for this day. Tomorrow's enough troubles of its own. And it's like when God watched, as Adam and Eve says, yeah, maybe God's holding on to me. Maybe he hasn't given me everything I should have. That was the breaking with the spirit. The biting of the apple was a natural physical follow-up step to what they'd already done in their hearts by questioning whether God had really taken care of them. So I think this from a theological standpoint, to come back to gratitude fixes the original sin in the heart of God, where God would love for us just to say, I believe that you have given me everything I need. I believe you have already given me all that I need. And I'm so grateful to you for it. And I don't care what anybody else says coming up to me. I don't care what anybody else challenges me. I know in my heart, everything I have comes from my Father of lights. There's no variation or shifting shadow. And to understand that we have all we need according to his glorious riches, immediately, probably the fastest practice we can engage in above all others, brings us back into the glowing warmth of the love and appreciation and harmony between our spirit and his spirit. On a psychological level, what I've observed is when you can get into a place of gratitude, and honestly, we misunderstand gratitude practices. It's like, well, thank you for, my car, my house, my friends, my job, this kind of thing. And it's empty. It's not the same essence. That's why I want to start with the theological, because if you understand the core essence of gratitude, it's to realign you with your state of being. And I will say this, did I mention this before, the Greek translation or definition of the word righteousness?
I
I'll,
believe so. I know we talked about it. I think it's
I'll
on
cover it
tape
real
already too.
quickly.
Yeah, yeah, go
If you
ahead.
want to go into and take an interlinear Bible and look up righteousness in the New Testament, I think it's in the Strong's Concordance. One of the descriptor sentences is when things are in a state as they ought to be. Righteousness, when things are back in a state as they ought to be. And it can say as God has ordained it or as God has laid it out. So what is the state God ordained or laid out for things to be as they were supposed to be? It's the Garden of Eden. That's what he designed. That's the way things are supposed to be. So what's in the garden? What is our state of being? We have everything provided for us. We get to walk in fellowship with the God of creation as his friend, and we want for nothing. We don't have a challenge. We don't have insecurities. We have, people in our life to support us. We're given things to do, like he's naming all the animals, and it's something I get to do with my Heavenly Father, my Papa. Let's have a project together. And so, how much can we take that and apply it to our daily lives, where we say, how much can I bring and make my life in alignment with the way He designed it to be? I want that. I want to feel like I walk with him. I want to have gratitude to say, I know you've given me everything. I'm good. I'm so good. And the work projects I have, whether it's writing or work efforts I have, trying to make money for a family, I treat that like God gave him the task of naming the animals. Let's do this together. And so it's not as much about the stress of like, oh my gosh, we're not done yet. What if this fails? No, it's something we're given to do with him. Let's just share it. If it screws up, okay, what do we do now? But it's the joy in knowing that I'm doing this with my Father, something he's given me to do. The aspect of a gratitude practice then is this. It's thinking and coming to a place where you can find that it's a place of spiritual bliss. So more than just a list of I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that, I'm thankful for that. It's the antithesis of fear. So and I want this point to be made because fear, it says perfect love casts out all of fear. Fear is a misuse of our imagination. Fear is the living out in advance of a worst case scenario until the emotions own our nervous system. So always we take fear, and it's not real in this moment. We project ourselves into a worst case scenario moment and then bring the emotions of that into our being. So our nervous system is infected by the fear of something hasn't even happened yet, assuming without faith in God, this is what could happen.
That's really good.
Abundance is the opposite. And this is why I think it's important to understand what happens in fear. It's an overwhelming owning of you. It's a possession. Your emotions, your thinking becomes ruminating. Your nervous system is obsessed with the fear. Hang on. Sorry, I had to cough. Can you do the same on the other side? Abundance does that.
Yes.
Abundance can overwhelm you with warmth of feeling, of trust, of love, of this gratitude. Owns you to say, wow, thank you, Father. Oh my gosh, look who I am with you. Look what you've given us to do. Look how you walk with me through the day. This is amazing. And I'm thanking you for this project I'm looking forward to. And whether it goes any direction, I don't care. I get to do it with you. Thank you for the people you put in my life. I'm just so grateful. And even when I'm in stress and struggle, thank you that I'm alive. You've given me this time on this earth, because I'm telling you, Steve Jobs would trade everything he ever had for one more day here. And I have that. And I have you. You know, and you could go through the list of gratitude. Thank you to be alive today. We have air conditioning. Thank you for today when we have anesthetics and painkillers for dental work. I can't imagine 150 years ago. Seriously, can't imagine. You know, thank you for cars. Thank you for ability to communicate like this. Thank you for so many things. You put me here for this, for a time such as this. And your joy in me is overwhelming. And so when you do a gratitude practice, you got to find two or three things that embed that emotional vibrance, because that's the vaccination, the countermeasure to fear. You have no problem embedding yourself with the negative emotions of fear so they own you and you pre-live this horrible worst case scenario story. We don't even question that. This is natural. It's human nature, right? Our thoughts then churn on them. Set your mind on things above, not on things of this earth. Cast your cares on him. Philippians, right? Joy. Oh, the whole thing's about joy, you know, and interestingly enough, in the Old Testament, and we grew up with this song, the joy of the Lord is the joy of the Lord is my strength. Little kids, some 5-year-old sings, right? It didn't occur to me till the Lord inspired me and said, you've had that backwards the whole time. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because you think it's your joy. The more you're joyous in the Lord, you'll be strong. It's the joy of the Lord. It's my joy in you. That should give you confidence and strength. I love you. I dance over you. It's the joy of the Lord. That is your strength. You know, and it's so powerful to understand, if you really get into gratitude, the heart of the Father glows over you. It puts you back in alignment with the way things ought to be. It puts you back in a place of faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please him, to say, I know you're going to take care of my needs. I'm in the garden with you. And to hunger and thirst for righteousness is to hunger and thirst for, I want to be back in that state where I had you before the fall. I hunger for that. The reason I love that definition so much, and it resonates in my spirit, is because I always had a hard time with the word righteousness. Mm-hmm. It felt legalistic. We use the term, there's people who are self-righteous. There was nothing appealing to me about righteousness, but the Bible is filled with it. You know, seek ye for, those who are hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be satisfied. And when I came back to this definition, I said, I can wrap my head around that. I can hunger and thirst for things to be as they were designed by God to be, where I have fellowship in the garden, where I thank him that he's provided for all my needs and believe him in that, where I fellowship with him, I see him, and everything I do in this earth is just a joy of a project I get to do with him. And it shifts the way you do everything and look at everything as well. You know, we get stressed out about projects. What if it fails? All these things. Maybe this project's too big for me, too small for me. What are other people going to think? All of that goes away. We just go, I have this time here. He gave us something to do. Father, let's go do it. And who cares what people think? You gave me this. Let's have fun with it. What if it doesn't work? Okay, then we'll adjust, you know? And the stress we have in the Western cultures, I will only be happy when I finally succeed and I finally get this and then I finally get that. And I just believe that life is too short for us to insist on everything being perfect in order to be happy.
So good. Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and I love everything you said. I don't, and the only thing I would is I liked how you see it as the antidote to gratitude is the antidote to fear. I think that's a really powerful connection, and I did want to just also just reaffirm how important it is. A lot of times you can go through the motions, just make a list of things you're grateful for, but I think you did hit it. You have to cultivate the feeling, and when you cultivate the feeling, that actually does change. It changes everything. And I was thinking, if gratitude is everything is exactly what God wants for me, and even I like how you connected to the garden. Also, I think that's really cool, and that's also in the Legacy book too, right? Because I think I remember reading
Yes.
that too. Yeah, so I really like that. And in a sense, then I mean, if gratitude or fear is actually you defined it really well. And when I was listening to you, I was also thinking one word you can also say, if it's the opposite of abundance, fear is the overwhelming sense of lack, which is the exact opposite of gratitude. So again, thanks for nailing that down. So like if somebody is like, has never done gratitude practice, you'll hear people, like people hear me, I talk about doing 5 things you're grateful for in the beginning of the day, 3 things you're grateful for at the end of the day. So like, that's my little hack version. Like what do you, when you work with a
Mm-hmm.
person, what is your baseline for just doing an easy gratitude exercise that they can do daily?
This is fantastic. And where's my Bible? Here it is. Um, and I say that actually not because I'm going to read a verse, because I have a template in here I want to show you.
Oh,
I
cool.
keep in here. So this is my daily planner
Okay.
practice. And right now I'm going to make this into a daily planner people can buy, but they can get it for free right now on my website too. Just get the template. Do the same thing I do every day. So in it, I have the first thing to do is I go through this area, and just on a practical level, there's a place to enter in what I'm going to do today on my legacy from these 5 areas of life. Then I'll go through and I will have a legacy. I have 3 gratitude practices, list those 3 things, but I teach about getting emotionally into them. Actually, I everything I just explained to you ties together a lot. I couldn't have said all of that in the book, or it would have just been its own chapter on gratitude, right? So, I mean, I added a lot here for your audience and your listeners, but I'm glad because that's where you get it. I teach doing 3 micro visualizations, which is again emotionally and physically and mentally getting involved in 3 things you're going to do today, but living them out the best they could go. So you're looking forward to them. So you're seeing them going well. So your nervous system is already like it's lived it once. It gives you things to look forward to today, helps you get through them. Whether the negative things like you got to lay somebody off, imagine it going well and they agreed and they said, "Yeah, I know, I saw it coming." Whether it's you got to talk to your mom and seeing it going well, or you hanging out with friends, or a big presentation, but to pre-live it in a minute and then do that right before you go into it, your to-do list and then your schedule and journaling. But here's what I literally do as my morning ritual. When I get up in the morning, first thing I do is 100 push-ups, and I've had to build up to that. I used to do about 20, and then I'd keep going until I hit 100, and sometimes it would take me 5 minutes. Now I can almost do 100 nonstop, and once I've done that, it wakes me up, my blood is running, and I immediately go into prayer, where I put my petitions before God, but I do it in a way where I try to make at least 50% or more of my prayer and petition time about thanking Him for something I've asked, that the answer is on its way. Jesus said, "Pray believing that you have received it, and it will come to you." And I think that I heard this once from Joel Osteen. I know a lot of pastors hate Joel Osteen, but one thing he did say, I agree with this. He says, "You don't have to ask God twice. He heard you the first time." So the answer is coming no matter what it is. Just thank Him that He heard you and the answer is on the way. And it gives the example of Daniel at 30 days for his prayer, and other people it's right away. But it's like it's the act of by faith believing that He heard you, that you have a relationship with Him, the answer is on the way. So anyway, enough of that. But so in the morning I do prayer. And I don't spend a lot of time on it because typically it's more of a fellowship thing. The Father knows what I've asked. I'll thank Him specifically, whatever comes to my mind, people come to my mind. Then I'll go into about 18 minutes of meditation where the purpose is to shut my brain off. my brain thinks it's in charge. And the more my brain is spinning, it shuts me off from hearing from spirit. And no other agenda but that. Often I'll listen to some nature music in the ears, and I may just count my breathing. And I'll go through this process. My brain is so sneaky. It wants to, it's the spirit sets itself against the flesh, right? My flesh wants to be in charge. It does not want to submit. And so while I'm sitting there trying to make my brain shut up and just focusing on my breathing and counting as I breathe, it typically goes through a cycle where all of a sudden it'll panic. Oh, you forgot to do this. Quick, write that down. And I'll like, no, we're going to continue and finish this. And it's like, darn it, didn't get them. And I feel this conflict in my own brain. And then it'll go, wow, there's something really good to, here's a thought. You should journal that right now. And I go, okay, but not right now. I let it go. And I'm going to finish. And finally, my brain gives up. And at the moment my brain finally surrenders, it's a beautiful sense of peace that comes, and spirit is in control, not my flesh. And I want to get to that place where spirit wins over flesh to start my day. And I don't always do it. It is a battle. It's a battle every day. It never ends. It is my biggest battle. And because we have become accustomed in our modern world that the brain is in charge, the brain loves to be in charge. It's empowered by being in charge. It wants to think it knows everything. It wants to control its environment. And it certainly does not want to hear from the spirit, because there's a chance the spirit doesn't want what it wants. And it fights it'll even get spiritual on you. Oh, this is great. Let's break out of this meditation because you need to write this journal. You need to pray. Oh, that was a deep thought. Let's journal that. Let's go really into some meditative journaling. And it's sneaky. And it's your own freaking brain, right? It's like, wait a minute, whose side are you on? And at some point, you have to understand that the hierarchy is the body has to submit to the mind, or you'll sit on the couch eating chocolates, right? It has to have discipline that the mind can control it, but the mind has to be submitted to the spirit. And the conjunction I make in my chapter 14 of my book, The Eternal You, is I truly believe we have a literal spirit. It's connected to the Father. It's purified. It knows wisdom because it's already connected to spirit. And we have been disconnected from our own spirit since we were severed in the garden. We don't understand now who we are when we're back realigned as a new living creature with God. And if we did, we would want to let our own spirit be the head of our activity and speak with us as it speaks with the Father. And this is where I come to really odd things that come to me, that I question. Maybe there's something to this. Dr. Bruce Lipton makes the comment. He goes, why do we need a body if this life is so great in the spirit? And then he poses the question. He goes, well, how would your spirit know what chocolate tastes like?
Yeah.
How would your spirit know what it's like to feel falling in love, to feel love? Because there's no gender in the spirit realm. And that helps me pause for a second and say, for the sake of my spirit, because my spirit will be one, it'll carry on my memories, my entity, who I am goes with me. So it's not like it's a different person. But to experience the world and the time God gave us here, it makes me want to stop and richly appreciate what is here and around me, and to taste something and to appreciate that. And, I think sometimes we're just so busy all the time. And it's almost like if you were to watch somebody who had a camcorder and they just kept moving it, you never get a sense of what's really there, and it drives you crazy. And I think our spirit at some point, can you slow down so I can appreciate that? Wait a minute, slow down for a second. That looked cool over there. Wait a minute, slow down. Let me feel that. Let me sense that. And then it's those times when we're finally in nature that we quiet and our spirit goes, thank you. This is amazing. And my goal as a man of 61 years old, I want to study and spend the rest of my days understanding how to more come in alignment with my spirit, the spirit that God's put within me, the sense of joy and wonder for everything he's created, so I can hear from the Father in conversation like he's my friend, like he walks with me in the garden, where I can live with gratitude to say, God, you've given me everything I need. I have faith in you. Where I can be grateful for the people he's put in my life, for the abundance, for the protection, the provision, the tasks, and ultimately mostly for his presence. Another time, you and I can have an offline conversation about this because it's juicy. I came up with the 7 stages of spiritual, I'd say enlightenment or growth or whatever you want, spiritual growth. And the second two are play. I get stuck on the third to the highest levels. One was like, um, God, I want you to do all this stuff for me, please. I pray for this, and it may be grand. God, help us change the world. God, I want this. Like, and the next one above the magic genie is, I want these supernatural experiences. Like I got to have a beautiful vision. Now everybody wants something. I want to see somebody miraculously healed and jump out of a wheelchair. I want to see that. I want to experience this supernatural stuff because they start to have faith that God could do that. But the highest level is where you go, I care nothing in this world. I just want to know you.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to the simplicity and beauty of that. It's almost a transcendence to a beauty of alignment with everything and who we're supposed to be in him, and just to glow with the radiance of, you are all I need. And the purpose of man is to love God and enjoy him forever, right? And that is glorifying to God. That is the glory of God. So I feel amazing right now for having this conversation. I feel the presence of Spirit. I feel joy. I feel love for him. And this is what I wish on everyone. I think the purpose of us being here is, one, to feel and experience that, know him in righteousness, to hunger and thirst for righteousness, things to be as they were supposed to be for us in the garden, that we can have that and to hunger for that, and we will be satisfied. And then to let our fellow man know that that's possible for them. And so with that, I will conclude, wrap it up before I sermonize too much. But
No, this is really good. Yeah. I mean, again, I didn't interrupt because this was a lot of good stuff. I do want to ask one final question. I guess you can kind of keep this brief because I mean, you've covered so much. So, like, I'm guessing somebody may want to work with you, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about what your coaching offerings are.
Mhm.
Like, how do you work with people? Do you work with men and women? So, like, what kind of coaching do you do? And talk about yeah, just talk about what you do with folks and how you would help a person to, maybe they say, hey, geez, I want to be like Marcum. So, like, how do your processes kind of work, and what kind of offerings do you have from a coaching perspective?
I thank you for that. And I already have a vision for where God will take it over as it grows over time. But what I really want to get into is uh, a legacy makers mastermind kind of a concept, where every
Mm-hmm.
week we'll have a teaching and we'll have open discussion. Then we'll have a small group around that so we can go deeper into it. And it'll be outlined to cover all the concepts presented in the creation of a legacy and in the developing of your identity as the eternal you. It's a very simple process to go through a 12-week mastermind, and really openly as a group commit to really developing the legacy that's already been put in you, to living it out. And it very quickly develops into a thing where you can see the impact you're making on people, where you're having amazing experiences. You're developing your assets in the proper way. You're birthing creations that are supposed to come out of you. And the way you have expressions of kindness, you have that philanthropy, the peace formula: people, experiences, assets, creations, expressions of kindness. So the peace legacy formula. And additionally, beyond that, we're going to be having, my vision is to have these weekend events where I'm going to bring in speakers who are experts in each of these areas. I've got a multi-generational wealth planner who believes in passing on your values, not just a will. I have a guy who's a beautiful commercial artist who can talk about not only the proper creation, but then how to make a business out of it. Usually those two mindsets don't go together. Many other things that we'll do along that. I also think there's a separate audience who just want to go deeper into the eternal you concept. Most of the stuff I've been able to talk with you, the first time I've ever been able to talk to anybody about these things, because not everybody wants deep dives into spirituality. And it's the nature of your freaking show. I'm like, thank you. But I think there's a growing movement around the world of people who hunger and thirst for this kind of life. And what I am praying the Lord will do is give me wisdom in how to apply this to daily life. How does what I just explained, who we are, who we're supposed to be, apply to somebody who's tired of his dead end job, who's stressed, who's having relationship issues, who's, all these different areas. I want to be able to answer directly to life and be able to say, this is how we then shall live under this understanding of who we truly are. So to me, this is a life project, and I think it'll grow. But for now, since you are my blessing to me, one of the first interviews I've done here after the launch of the book, if people will go and get the book, I'll get them the bonuses, and there's a place for a survey. I want to know, of all the different things I will be developing, which ones are most important to you right now, so we can prioritize them. So everybody gets to be a part of helping create all of these things to support people as well. But thanks for asking. Just go to marcumdavis.com, and they get there's a link there to buy the book on everywhere. And then just bring your receipt number back, and we'll give you the daily planner template. We'll give you the 20-minute training on morning rituals, and a 7-part video series on making your mark in the world.
All right. Well, you heard from Marcum, marcumdavis.com, abundanceinternational.org. Marcum, thanks for your time. You've been generous to do 3 episodes with me. It's been really fun. It's gone really fast. So just thank you, brother. And I'm just grateful that I had the privilege of meeting you and getting to talk to you a little bit more in depth.
It's my joy. Thanks so much. And I love your audience. I already feel their spirit, and wish them all the good stuff they get from your show. You're really doing something good in the world, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening all the way to the end. And until next time, live by faith, be known by love, and be a voice of hope to others.